Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in a jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
So welcome to part 2 of the Black Spy podcast's last week's recordings. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back to last week and have a listen. But this is part 2. So enough further ado.
I am very, very interested in this whole hypothesis about our primeval beings. Very interested in the fact that I've had four sons, and I work full time, and I do all the stuff that I need to do, and blah blah blah. But actually, primevally, is that really what I'm destined to do?
You see, what I would say is you use the word weak. Now, what I would say is this: if you were saying that 300 years ago, maybe a bit more, in this Western world, because we're going to narrow it down to the West in a sense to keep it understood, but we know we got listeners all over the place, but to the West. It is Western centric, I think. I'm sorry for that, but it is in many ways. But if we're going to narrow it down to that, let's be realistic. The days are gone where the strongest man rules the system. He doesn't. In the past, like it or not, kings and queens, and it's obviously quite topical because we will have had the coronation by the time this comes out. When a war happened, in the past, some 300, 400, 500 years ago in particular, maybe not less, maybe obviously that age was being taken off as time went on, the king went to war to bolster his coffers. Okay, let's say it as it is. Not really for the good of the nation or anything like that, but to bolster his coffers so he could spend more money, etc., etc. But the one positive thing he had running for him, and it also went for female queen if there were some, in some stadia, not Queen Elizabeth, but some stadia before that. At least they're in front of the army when it was fighting. That day is gone. So what you get now is you get the politician who's weak, talks a good job, but sends somebody else's children to die. Doesn't send his own to die. So you get the anomaly whereby in the Vietnam era example, various presidents who we've had, Bush, Clinton, neither of them fought in Vietnam, albeit that both of them were of the age to have fought in Vietnam. No, because set aside was a system that said, if you're at college, or if you joined the National Guard from college, you didn't need to be sent overseas to fight. So of course these wealthy people did that. Clinton was out on the road, scholarship, etc., doing what he was doing. And your man Bush was in the National Guard flying aircraft, but never went anywhere near any danger. So this is what you get. You get people who are not at danger themselves, but are very happy to send Joe Soap's kids from Liverpool 8 or Liverpool 17 or whatever, yeah, who, haven't got a cat in house. They're the ones who are sent to fight a war that they get very little out of. Let's be realistic about this. So, and I use war as the most obviously tragic of the processes, but it could be anything. So what you're looking at is you're looking at people who now are in power, but have none of the negatives of power. It's only the positives of power which they now get. Whereas in the past, they could have experienced the negatives of power. They don't assassinate each other as a general rule, because of course it's open season on each other. So they think, let's not do that. That might get a bit dangerous because I might get topped. Somebody might think, take me out. So it's all this system where they're looking after themselves. And, I've been protecting these people, so I'm telling you where it's from. So It's not necessarily that a woman's weaker. It's not that a woman's weaker. She's just in the same line as them.
What I'm trying to say is, like, okay, what I'm trying to suggest is that there is an opportunity to reinvent the role for the inverted commas crone, you know?
Absolutely.
Like if you had the opportunity, I mean, like, it's funny, isn't it? Because in the James Bond films, when they got Judi Dench in as M, right, and they were making her that, inadvertently, they were making her that crone that ran MI6, right?
Yes.
The wise old woman, that menopausal wise old woman. But everyone just went, oh, great, it's Judi Dench. Yep. Nobody went, let's think about that role that women could have in society, where they could be actually running big businesses. They all just went, oh, wow, it's Judi Dench.
And you're right. But let me put another point to you. Do men have menopause?
Well, do they?
I believe they do.
Because another thing that Dr. Rachel was saying was that even though she's a neuropsychologist, the way she explains the way that the brain is actually linked to the environment is insane. I mean, you know, it's incredible, you know, and you should definitely have him back on for another.
Absolutely.
I in fact, I insist that you have him back.
Good.
Because I'm now your podcast wife, so I mean,
absolutely.
But one thing that she says is that sort of every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Yes, the third law of motion. Yeah, brilliant.
So for men, you have to, if you don't achieve the task, you haven't achieved the task, you know. Whereas for women, we probably just sort of redefine the goalposts.
And that might be a positive in some circles. You see, I remember doing a class in Austria, and I was speaking to them, and they were female officers, police officers, who'd come into the job because it was quite new. It was about 2000, something like that. And they were quite new in the role of uniform. Now, I couldn't really tell them much about uniform, but they wanted to know how policing was done in the United Kingdom. I said, you know, I can tell you a little bit about how it functions and men and women's role, because they wanted to know about women's roles in place. And they said to me, is it true that officers don't carry firearms in the United Kingdom? To which I said, as a general rule, it is to 98%, 96 to 98% of the role. It's true. They don't carry weapons. So they said, so women then, they do carry weapons, do they? And I said, no, women don't carry weapons either. He said, all right. One woman stood up, said, one officer stood up, she said, all right, so then they don't go out then. They do the work in the police station. They stay in the police station and do the work. And I said, no, they don't. They go out as well. Also, they go out with men then, do they? They go out with men. I said, no, you may find that woman's walking the street by herself. Pretty much normal. So then this one woman said, female officers, said, so how do they control people then? So if a big Sweimeter, that's 6'6", guy comes up, obviously we're speaking in German, quick Sweimeter guy comes up, 2 meter guy comes up, what are you going to do to stop him? I said, well, obviously they'll try and stop him. Well, this guy has obviously got all the strength in the world. They said, up until now, we were only in the CID. So Austrian women were in the CID. Because in the CID, they needed women and doing CID work. But they were then, you know, they could then deal with the issue from a non-uniform perspective. Whereas uniform, you're dealing with everything that just comes up at you. You can turn a corner and something happens. CID, you know what you're going to. But the uniform, you turn the corner, something's happening, you've got to deal with it. So what they're saying is how are they dealing with that? Fellas just done a robbery, you turn your corner, you see it. How do they deal with the big 6'6" guy? What do they do then? They got no weapon. Because I know what I do. I put my hand on my pistol. That's what she said. Put my hand on my pistol. And they know when I say stop, that's what I'm saying. And I've got pepper spray, I've got a pistol, and that's what I'd be using, one or the other. How's a British woman going to stop that?
And
right? And the reality is, first and foremost, is how's the British guy going to stop that? So you've got to look how the guy's going to got it and what that British guy is going to have to do. Which is in the past, of course, in the police, most of the men used to be big, tall guys, 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3". Some forces used to have I think it had to be 6'4" to get into some of the police forces up north, 6'4". So you were big guys because they were taking account of the fact they've got nothing, right, to defend themselves with, other than their brute force. So that's why British policing could be sometimes a little bit more brutal, because you have to lay your hands on somebody to actually control them. Whereas, they could stand off if you kind of firearm and say, don't move, whatever. Don't look at the United States, worst example in the world. It's a very bad police system in general. It's too macho. Push the United States out of the way. But, most other countries, don't move, got a weapon on you, further assistance coming. But in Britain, it's hands-on, and it's hands-on you fighting with somebody to try and control them. Because how else are you going to stop them? Right? That's where the problem lies. So there you get a lot of people, a lot of women, and a lot of men, because now you're getting small guys into the job, who are getting beaten up.
What about sexual orientation, like, gender identity? What about if a small guy identifies as a woman?
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously the modern police service, it doesn't matter that, does it? That you'll be allowed in if you identify as a woman, and you are a woman. They'll put you in a woman's uniform, I'm guessing, and which is now the same as a man, so there's no real difference there. But you'll just be a woman.
But just circling back to what you just said about how you would
deal with a big guy. Yeah, I mean, it takes many officers. That's the reality of it. So people think it's brutal, but you need many officers to pin down a big guy. It's the most difficult thing in the world, put somebody's arm up the back if they don't want it, right? So you try and put handcuffs on somebody where they don't want it, that's why you're going to get beaten up. So the question is it wrong? Is it wrong to not look at that differential in strength and weight and power? Is it wrong not to look at it? So we pretend that, we'll make no exception, everybody's the same. But is it? Is the criminal going to play the same game? Or is the criminal going to say, I'm going to give you a good slap. I don't care who you are, man or woman, I'm going to give you a good hiding.
The one thing I would say is, in the landscape of media output, where there's been a 6'4" man holding down a 5'4" woman,
mm-hmm.
Right, well, it's a no-brainer how the media is going to work.
Yep.
But if there were an option that there were a 5'4" woman to hold down a 5'4" woman,
yep,
would that be play out in a different way?
It does. And that is why many more women are now arrested. In the past, and this is what people don't look at, all these things come together. In the past, you were out on the street, and I'm not, again, I always put a preface here. I only did 2 years on the street to let people know as a uniformed officer. So nobody can turn around and say, this fella's talking like he was on the street forever. I wasn't. I did 2 years. That's all I did. My destiny was something completely different. So in the past, what used to happen was, and I can attest to this, because when you come out of training school, you've got an 18-month probation. So when I say 2 years, it's actually 18 months, because after you're 6 months in the school, you do another 18 months before you can specialise. So in my time, what would happen, you'd go to some disturbance, and as it is today, still the same, and there'd be women who would be shouting and shouting at the police officer, leave this alone, or you this, that, the other, you pig, blah, 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 whatever it might be. Same as what. You would never arrest a woman. Be quiet, I'm dealing with this person here, this guy here, it's a fighter. Dealing with this guy here, boom, boom, boom. You wouldn't take a woman in and put her in front of the custody officer and say, what's this woman here for now? Oh, well, she was calling me this, that. What's wrong with you? Yeah, that would be the attitude in the old days. Now, of course, because there's many more policewomen in, that policewoman will arrest a woman, because it's just like a man. Because if that man was saying the same words that a woman was, you pig, this, that, the other, and try to slap him like some of the women were, the man gets nicked. There is zero doubt about that. He gets arrested. Right? So men upon men. Now, sometimes a woman is better because they can talk a man down. And when you can talk a man down, he's clearly not all that much of a criminal, you can talk him down, you're good to go. So that's where a woman has been positive. I'm not saying women shouldn't be on the street. This is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is you should have all the equipment you require. And for me, a pistol is just another piece of equipment. It's up to you how you use it. And in Britain, if you use it in any way, shape or means, the slightest way incorrectly, you're going to be in front of a court looking and going to prison. So that's going to be the case. So any sensible person wouldn't do anything wrong. But it's another piece of equipment that you might require at that time. And when you require it, you require it. It's no good waiting for somebody else to turn up. It's all too late. So the point I'm making is we're trying to police with one arm behind our back. Women are getting arrested by other women that wouldn't have got arrested in the past. And so there's more women being put in prison, etc., etc., etc. So, there are downsides to upsides. Half of the police now, I would say, in some forces are women, half, minimum in some. Most, chief constables now, it's probably about 30-40% are women. So chief constables of police forces. It's not abnormal. People keep talking about the policeman. Those days are gone. And the women are in charge in many, many areas, in many, many places. There's nothing wrong with that. But you need to move with that in the reporting of it. So when people say, the police have got this canteen culture, they're doing this. Hang on. These are being run by women. The top officer was a woman not that long ago. The commissioner of the metropolis was a woman. There is no higher rank in the police service in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, but okay, let's circle back. You speak really, really highly of your own mother, right? What if the system was redefined whereby women had the choice where they could be high flyers, or if they wanted to support their family and bring up their family and whatever, then the system would be behind them, and there could be that option.
Yes. Yeah.
Or if they wanted to go into the army,
do whatever,
or do whatever, then there could be that army. I feel like the problem isn't the global perception of gender divide. It's about the opportunities that each territory, and especially that Britain currently gives females.
I guess what I was arguing was a little bit different. What I was saying is that, because you mentioned the word high flyer, what is a high flyer?
What I would say is that just before we do sort of go into this, right? There is every opportunity, and women have every capacity to do all of this. But my question here, and this is like the antithesis of what my 9-year-old self would be asking, right? But my question really is, what resources does the government provide if you don't want to be a high flyer?
Yeah, well, this is the point, and this is why I mentioned the high flyer, because I knew exactly where you were coming from. Because I don't know what a high flyer is. Because we think somebody at the top of the level is a high flyer, actually, it doesn't mean they're necessarily very capable.
But
Especially in our country.
Right now, look, I'm just...
Do you think Richie Sunak is the most capable fella to run this country?
No, of course I don't.
Right, exactly.
But look, one thing I will say to you is right now, I'm looking at my calendar for tomorrow, right? My calendar tomorrow, right? I've got 4 children, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to get 3 of them to school. I need to drop 1 of them off to school. I need to one of them to the childminder. I've got a meeting at 9:30. I've got another meeting at 10:30. I've got another meeting at 1. I've got another meeting between 3 and 4. And then I need to take one of the kids to swimming at 3. And then I need to take another kid to his ballet lesson at 5:30. And assumingly I've now got another meeting with the teacher at 5, and like blah blah blah. Right. So, do you see what I mean? It's
the
like,
difference is you're capable.
Yeah.
The difference is you're capable, and I know you're capable.
But it shouldn't be.
No, I'm not saying that you're capable to do all those things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I know you're capable.
But the thing is, it shouldn't be a difference. It should be if women want to position themselves as a high flying woman, right? Or just like winning at life.
Yes. This is what I'm coming to.
To be honest, if they could just deal with all the things that I have to do with my kids, that would be winning. And
correct.
If on top of that, like if someone had time to clean the bathroom, that would be awesome.
This is what Dr. Greer was saying. The world famous Germaine Greer. This is what she was saying. What she perceived as women's liberation, as it was in those days, was to be what you're doing. Right? That's what she saw as women's liberation. She's now saying, I was probably wrong. And she took some flack for saying it. Because what she's saying is, maybe it's not as good as we thought it might have been. So I'll put you in my perspective. I went out doing a whole load of different things in areas that I thought I wanted to do. No doubt about it. I'm not arguing that I didn't. The price to be paid was I hardly ever saw my children. And you find the occasion when the wife says, oh, do you remember this, that, and the other? I said, no, I don't remember because I wasn't there. Right? So that's the price for it. Now, there's an assumption by too many people from the perspective of many of the women who are pushing forward as women's liberation that, oh, I was happy for that. No, I'm not happy for that. I'll tell you one, and I'm not speaking that cool now. Clegg, right, when he was Deputy Prime Minister, and I take my hat off to him for it, I remember him saying, we're in New York, I remember him saying, oh, I've got to go home because this week it's me to look after the children and take them to this, that, and do this, that, and t'other. I said, whoa, fucking heck. And my mind felt, hang on, this guy's Deputy Prime Minister, he should be doing his work. But he was basically saying, why should I not do the normal things? Why can I not have the time with children so I know them? Why must
even? I mean, we all laugh about this. We all laugh about this because it's Dominic Cummings. But I mean, come on. Like, even when he delayed that parliamentary conversation because he said he had to take his kids to violin lessons or something, right? Well, yeah, but at the same time, why shouldn't he take his kids to violin lessons?
Exactly. So if you want true liberation for men and women, and you want men to do more, something's got to give. And what he was saying has to give is the job. But most jobs don't see it that way. If I turn around and say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that job to Saudi, like I told you the other day, when I was doing Charles, I went into the office that very day to the Assistant Principal Specialist Operations, David Vaness, and I went into his office that day and he said, I'd love you on a flight tonight. Right, that's it. I want you on a flight tonight. And then you have 3 weeks doing that. Right?
Okay.
So I didn't have the chance to turn around and say, oh, well, I've got that, and I've got this, and I've got that, and I've got whatever. No, it was assumed that if you want to do the job, you just do what's required. So the question then is, when that same load has to happen to women, and the reason why I mentioned that, I could remember that the woman in charge, later on there was a woman in charge of Special Branch before it ended, the last person in charge of it, she was saying, why are there so few women in protection? And I said, there are so few women in protection because I know we're in the 20th century, but not every woman wants to say, I won't see my kids for 2 weeks because some jobs just happen that you need to do somewhere in the world. You know, she said, no, I'm not having that. It's obviously because it's not set up right for them. The exam isn't set up right or whatever. I said, no, it's nothing to do with that. It's actually to do with what's expected of you. You come on at maybe 7 o'clock and you leave at 12 o'clock at night. 7 morning, 12 at night. That might be what it is, and then you get back up again and do this. If you're a DC particularly, lowest rank, because you're with the person all the time. Right, 7 o'clock at morning, at night, bang, that's you finished. Then you get your 4 or 5 hours sleep, you're back up, next day, same routine. Most women have to look after children. Now, you could argue maybe the men should share with them, but what jobs are the husbands in? The husbands' jobs allow them to say whatever? Now, the question is what's right and what's wrong? I would argue, as I said, we can do that. I said to Janet Williams, she was called, who's in charge. I said, we can do that, Janet. But you know what we need to do? We need to double the number of people that are in protection. And then the branch will need its numbers doubling in general in other parts of the branch. We just don't have the people. So instead of a 30,000, 27,000, 30,000 police officer, police force in the Met, you'd have, 60,000, around about 60,000 officers and then another 40,000 civilian staff. So you'd have 100,000 people in the Met. So instead of a 2 billion budget, you'd have a 4 billion budget. There's consequences in your actions. Yeah, you can do this. You can make it so the hours are right for everybody. But what? Because when you don't, somebody's got to pick up that slack.
Yeah, and also the other thing that the other elephant in the room, which is our white paper, which you really have to think about is what about when those women who are 45 plus or whatever that are in the Met for whatever reason, hit the menopause and then they're going through horrendous symptoms.
We had it.
through constant, like hot flushes, they're going through night sweats, they're going through rages, they're going through all these symptoms that that people just don't talk about.
We had it, and what happened is, now this is where you get situations, and I see this in race, I see it in gender, I see it in disability sometimes. Now, and it's only sometimes, not everybody. People turn around and say, well, I need to have the opportunity because I've got this. I need the opportunity now not to work on this day, on that day, whatever. Who picks that slack up? You'll find it with people who will say, oh, I can't do this, and I've had it. I can't do this because I can't work on the Sabbath. Who picks that slack up? I need to do whatever. So when you start moving...
But Carson, okay, so 50% of the population will go through the menopause, right?
Yes.
Statistically, 50% of the population at the moment experience cancer, right? One of the findings from our white paper, which is astounding, is that people would rather admit to having cancer than admitting to going through the menopause.
Because I think, well, I don't know. I'm asking you now.
In order to get time off work.
This is I'm asking you now. Do they perceive the menopause as natural?
Essentially, this is an HR issue, right? Isn't it? I mean, essentially, what women are saying is that it's easier to say that they've got cancer to ask for time off.
It is, and I think
it's to say that they're going through the menopause, but like, for goodness sake, like, every woman goes through the menopause. It's ridiculous.
But what will happen is, and this is where we get both sides of this coin now that I'm just talking to you about. What you'll find is there will be blokes who will then turn around and say, I've got the menopause. I need time.
If you like, but actually, it would be really great if they did, because
because they do the work.
Because in a funny way, when I was trying to think about how to frame this whole story, I was trying to think about what challenges men actually have, age 50 plus.
There is some type of menopause for sure, hot sweats, etc., sweats, etc. There is for sure. And I'd love for Rachel to come on and explain what those are, because she'd be able to do that superbly. I'd like for her to look at it in connection with women and go through the plus and the minuses, or how it functions differently, or whatever it might be.
Well, there you go, Dr. Rachel. That's
a come on to her. That's an invite. That's a come on to her. Bring her on.
Carson, all I'd say is, what I would like to say is, I learned a lot from Dr. Rachel, and all about the sort of going back to the kind of pioneer.
I think what you're arguing for, from what I'm hearing, is you're arguing for a shorter working life for women, and I'd stand with you on that.
I think so, but if there would be a way to sort of make that work, but
there is.
But the problem is, but the problem is, when we look into geopolitics, when we look into all the things that we talk about, actually the glass ceiling, and that now the sort of pension bar, and now at the end of the day, I mean, my mum's 76 now, right? She's basically saying she's going to have to keep working till she dies.
It's wrong, isn't it?
And she's got some investment properties and blah blah blah. They don't get her a lot of money, but blah blah. But it's wrong. It's wrong.
The modern world is wrong.
But the thing is, right? If we looked at the role of women, actually, could she at the Uber menopause system, right? Like if we were mirroring what the killer whales do. So when I had my children. My mum, the killer whale, if she was a killer whale, right, would have stopped killing, and she would have hung out with my baby killer whales, and taught them the ways of the killer whale world.
Take a village to raise a child.
Yeah, and that would have been her role. And
there's nothing wrong with that role, is there?
Exactly, and that would have been and I would have been, as a adult killer whale, with my husband, adult killer whale, being out to go out and kill.
But the young Jermaine Greer wouldn't have liked that, would she? The young Jermaine Greer.
That for a minute. Right?
Well, the old one will. That's the difference. She's learned.
But all I'm saying is, right, in the landscape of mammals, looking after mammals, if we were to redefine the role of women, all the stuff about should we be fighting in wars, should we be working in Wall Street, should we be right? I'm very, very much influenced at the moment about the biology.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking about the fact that if we just let men do what they can do and women do what they can do,
I did want to say something. I've just come to it now. The problem is we've letting men do what they want to do. And, you know, I'm a defender of the fact that we shouldn't see one type of man and make him out to be a devil, which is what I think we are doing with white men, at least at a superficial level, if not in reality, but that's what perception is. If we basically turn around and say, do what men do, the problem is that we all know, and men know this, they've kind of been emasculated incorrectly or correctly, who knows. The job of the ancient man, it's called the selfish gene, and it's the same 70s that you've been talking about, women are Venus and men are Mars, same thing, same period of time. There was a book out called The Selfish Gene, which basically looked at the fact that it was a man's job to impregnate as many women as he could to make sure that his DNA basically keeps working. So it's a battle.
Apart from that guy that's just been arrested for anything like 500.
Yeah, and that's probably from the same perspective. It's like what I'm not talking about bad raping women now, some nonsense like that. I'm just talking about that was the task. It's like in nature, that's what it is, isn't it? The woman species, the female species, looks for the best male species to carry on the progeny as such. So the question is, for me, is if you let men do what they want to do, surely the alpha male will just be out doing that.
Well, it's interesting because I've got 4 boys and my children will, I mean, honestly, they'll weaponize anything, but they've all got very different personalities.
Yes,
they will weaponize. They will all weaponize anything, but at the same time, they don't value.
No.
And it was only when they discovered Fortnite
that they did.
They didn't.
You see, now some may say that that's purposefully done. So look. Let me leave you with this question. Because, you know, time's running as it always is. I'm a great believer in people taking responsibility for themselves. Now, what some people will, I don't care if you're a man, woman, whatever, what some people will turn around and say is, you're putting the emphasis on the victim rather than the perpetrator. But what I'm saying is this. I know that when I walk on zebra crossing, that a vehicle has to stop. I know that. It's a fact. That's the law in the United Kingdom. And I guess it's a law in some other countries. So instead of a zebra crossing, we can call it a traffic light where it says it's green for a pedestrian to walk. So I know that's the case. However, if I see a lorry hurtling down towards me, which is a HGV, a wagon coming towards me, and that light says green, or that zebra crossing's or a pelican crossing, I can just walk across it. I don't step out assuming that the lorry's just going to stop. And if he doesn't, I don't think, well, if he doesn't stop, he's going to get done for not stopping because I'll be dead, right? No, I think to myself, self-preservation, don't do that. So I used to say to male kids that I have, I used to say I said, don't go out and get drunk and not be able to defend yourself. Because as sure as eggs are eggs, when you step out into a pub, every time you step into that pub, there's somebody who may want to give you a good hiding. Maybe because he's drunk or whatever reasons it might be. You looked at him the wrong way or whatever it might be. That's every man, boy who goes into a pub or whatever. That can happen to you all day long. All right? So don't go in there, get drunk where you can't defend yourself. And I'd say the same to daughter and say, don't get drunk so you don't know what you're doing. Because somebody will take advantage of you.
Well, it's interesting, Carlton, because
somebody will take advantage of you.
Even to this day, right? I mean, I like I say, I've got 4 boys, so I don't. I will narrate your advice to them, definitely. But to me, to myself, even to myself, right? I'm a grown up, right? But even to myself, when I go to the pub and the pub is 5 minutes walk up the road, right? I make sure that I've got enough money to get a cab home in case there's any dangerous situation. And I don't, and even if I don't, like I don't even go to the pub on my own. I go to the pub
Fergus,
and
I will be
my kids.
castigated now, Fergus, because what some feminists will say is, why can that woman not get drunk? Why must she alter her activity because men can't control themselves? What I'm saying is,
I was brought up basically like my mum and my aunt always said to me, and it's funny because they said to me, like, you know, put 20 quid in your sock, right? So if someone nicks your purse, you've still got 20 quid to get a cab home. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, all I'm saying is don't put yourself on offer. I'm saying when that lorry comes down to that zebra crossing, don't step out. That's what I'm saying. Don't step out. You know, is it good to be drunk? Now, okay, I put my cans on the counter table. I'm not a drinker. I've never been drunk in my life. I don't want to be. So maybe I can say that. So you know, people say, oh, he's a nutter, whatever. But the point is, don't put yourself on offer, is what I'm saying. Don't put yourself on offer. Man or woman, I don't care what you are, man or woman, do not put yourself on offer. You know what the premise is, you know what you're trying to save, you know what you're trying to protect. Protect it. Enjoy yourself by all means, but protect what you are, i.e. that's you. Most important thing that should be, protect you. That's all I'm saying. But that will be misconstrued purposefully, and it'll be said, this is a man protecting a man. That's not what I'm saying. Because I know the bad men out there.
Carlton, do you know what? I think that's an amazing way to wrap this episode up. I think that's a lovely way to wrap this episode up. And what I'm going to leave this with is actually a really positive thing. I'm going to ask your listeners to tell me about amazing ways that they have connected in their own relationships. You know, where the barriers have come down, where there is no man or woman.
Just one thing I'd like to say, I know I should have left you there, but one thing I would like to say, with this in mind, what we were saying is that at the end of the day, when we look at it, what we're all looking for is actually for a good life. And I sometimes think that we miss the good life by trying to grab what somebody else has got. Don't get me wrong, we shouldn't give anybody else something we don't get it ourselves. We miss the good life that we can potentially have.
Yeah, like that pizza that you wanted earlier, right?
Absolutely. You've got a human Italian pizza, Italian restaurant. Yes.
Like that cheese, like the really good cheese that you want.
Absolutely. Instead of rubbish. But there you go. But so that's basically fantastic. As per normal, we will have Dr. Rachel on.
But listen, please. We will get Dr. Rachel on, but also please, like, tell us, right? Like, what are your you know, like, if you're a guy, right? What are your top guy things? What do you prioritize? What's important to you as a guy, right? You know, if you're female, or identify as female, like, what's important to you? Because we'll talk about this, you know, things that are important to the listeners are things that we will talk about. So Tanner,
can I ask you something, Fergus, just before we go? So yeah. Should we have this as just one episode? Because if we split it into two, I know the timings are long, but will we miss out?
Oh my God.
The decision is yours, because this is your show.
No, it's yours. Like, no, to make it one, because then it'll be...
We'll make it one. Okay, well, it'll be long, but we'll make it one. Because I think it deserves one. I think it should be consumed in one. What do you think?
But I would love, I personally, like, I would love more women to be interested in MI5 and MI6, to be honest.
Yeah, there are a lot, by the way. So any woman thinking about it, in it coming through in and GCHQ, but actually GCHQ probably more, because women tend to be better at languages. So and we need to get more women in the tech as well as languages. So no, in all those services they're available. Don't get me wrong, they've done very well in the police and moved up in numbers massively. So they should also go into the services. There are many already I've got to say that. There are many already. So do not think you will be an exception, because you won't.
Amazing.
So on that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say goodbye for today. And I'm waiting for her to come in to say, why?
Let's just level up. Burn your bras, like comments, like get involved. Let's all go out for a group hug. Let's embrace our feminine energy, all right?
1970s, baby. Love it. See you again next week.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.